Hi guys, welcome to this business analyst training and certification. And in this, we'll first have an introduction to the business analysis perspective. After that, we'll dive into the information technology perspective for business analysis. Then we'll look into the details of business architecture perspective of business analysis. After that, we'll dive into what is UML. And then we'll see what is Microsoft Visio. And finally, we'll have hands-on for Microsoft Visio. Now, in this section, we'll discuss about business analysis perspective. So, business analysis is an approach in which the expectations as well as the requirements of the users and stakeholders of a project or task are defined. So, this we already know. So, business analysis is a professional with many tasks and techniques. And within these tasks and techniques, there are some which are specific to certain methodologies and technologies. So, we have business analysis perspective. So, we need to understand the use of business analysis from a different point of view. So we analyze all the business activities, we analyze the business, its working, and the clients that we have. So we get project and we work on them accordingly. So we work according to the requirements and the expectations of the client, and then we perform various activities, various methodologies for developing the application or the product that has to be developed and for which we get the requirements from the client. So according to the business analysis perspective, there are a lot of things that includes these perspectives. So it can be like using various tools, it can contain the business intelligence tools, information technology, various business architecture, the type of architecture, and it also depends on the business process management. So these perspectives are not a complete list of all the possible business analysis perspectives, but they are some of the popular ones. So it actually depends on the type of business, the type of company, the type of clients, and these perspectives gets changed and alter according to that. So some of these perspectives also combine several perspectives into one, but there are some of the popular perspectives. So some of these perspectives also combine several perspectives into one. For example, the information technology perspectives includes the agile, business intelligence, business architecture, and business process management perspective. So while the business architecture perspective may include the blending of two or more organizations into one and analyzing the impact of the merger on their business capabilities, while the business intelligence perspective might also be considered in the merger because of the business leaders would like to use the impact analysis in their decision making. So the perspectives are used to conduct the business analysis task in a way that is specific to that particular context, and the perspectives help explain the knowledge areas and the task in the babok guide from the perspective of the initiative. So there are various things and various structures. So it includes the change scope, business analysis scope, methodologies, approaches, techniques, underlying competencies, and the impact of various knowledge areas. The change scope, the business analysis scope, methodologies, approaches, and various impact of knowledge areas. So when we talk about the business analysis perspective, we have various kinds of input and we have to get some output like developing a product. So we need an end product. So for this, we collect the requirements, we gather the requirements from various clients and we evaluate them on the basis of various factors. We analyze those requirements, we refine those requirements, and then transform it into a usable format that we can use to develop the product and the application as per the demand of the client. Now, when we talk about the business analysis perspective, so we get a lot of in-depth and the insight of the business as well as market, client, product. So we really get the opportunity to improve all the business processes, all the related business activities to ensure that we deliver best to our clients. So when analyzing the business problems or the internal processes that exist in the organization, we must have knowledge of characteristics, required competencies, methodologies, analytics tools that are involved. So we also need to understand how different business analysis perspectives apply or can be combined depending on the type of business or the type of organization's point of view. So in this context, we talk about various things like the business intelligence or the business analysis perspective of various aspects of the activities of the organization. So here we also talk about the target audience, including the individuals interested in developing and refining the business analysis skills as well. So there are a lot of aspects of the business analysis. So we have to identify the features of the project that impact the business analysis activities. We need to recognize necessary competencies while using a particular approach for business analysis. We have to identify the characteristics of the business intelligence perspective. Also, we have to identify a lot of things like business analysis activities that are actually specific to the business initiatives. We have to recognize the characteristics of working from an IT perspectives also. So identifying the consideration for working of an IT change initiative really involves a lot of effort which we have to put in context of business analysis, and then we have to recognize the outcomes of the business analysis with a business architecture point of view. So we have to identify the common business architecture techniques. We have to recognize characteristics of the business process management also. So these are the things related to the business analysis perspective. Now coming to the approach of business analysis perspective, so again, we have a purpose, we have description, input, we have elements, guidelines and tools, techniques that are used, the stakeholders and output. So let us look into each one of them. So purpose involves a reason to perform a task. So in previous modules, we have already discussed about the purpose of various knowledge areas. Now coming to the description of approach in business analysis perspective. So here we need to check what is a task, why to perform it, and what are the results, and what the results are after performing the business analysis activity. Then comes the input. So this consists of the information and the preconditions necessary for a task to begin. So this is the initial point. We have to gather a lot of requirement as well as the information from the client, from the stakeholders, from the market in order to initiate a project. Now coming to the elements, they are the key concepts needed to understand how to perform a task. So this is the element that provides to us. So this need from business analysis perspective is fulfilled by the elements that we have. Then comes guidelines and tools. So guidelines and tools used to perform the business activities. It includes all the tools that we have to use. So it depends on the type of company, it depends on the type of project as well as the client, the project for which we have to use the tools. And there are specific guidelines for it. Now coming to the techniques. So some are specific to the performance of a single task and others are relevant to a large number of tasks. Then comes the stakeholders. So the stakeholders are those who will be affected by the task. And finally, we have the output, which is the result of the work described in the task and deliverable or its part. So this is the approach of from the business analysis perspective, and it is same as the previous knowledge areas that we have discussed in the business analysis body of knowledge guide. Now coming to the that we have discussed in the business analysis body of knowledge guide. So this is similar to the previous knowledge areas that we have discussed. So finally, these are all the approach from the business analysis perspective. And once an investigation of the business situation has been carried out by the business analyst, so then they need to take time to think through the issues and the development or the initiation of the project, and at this point thinking through the information gain and the perspectives of those providing that information, so they take this as an invaluable asset for performing various business activities using the approach that is described. So this was all about the business analysis perspective. In this section, we'll discuss about information technology perspective. So while information technology does indeed enable better design of systems and existing organizations, and it also enables the design of fundamentally new organizations as well as the systems. Thus, there are efforts made in this area that includes the proactivity in the sense of being aware of the future technological as well as organizational and human concerns so as to support the evolution over time to new information technology services. So among these would be improved access to knowledge of all types. So there are initial efforts that are made at provision of information technology based systems that are actually concerned support through more advanced information technology based hardware as well as softwares. So we have to decide the usage of the technology when we are dealing with the business analysis activities. So which technology, or you can say the information technology we should use in order to implement the project and deliver it to the customer on time, as well as it assists in developing the software as well as the applications that are needed by the client, and the requirements that are mentioned by the clients are fulfilled. So we have to think over which technology should be used and how to use it effectively for the product. So here, some time ago, it was recognized that support could be provided not only to individuals in accomplishing such tasks as the report preparation or the requirement gathering, but that the ubiquitous computer could provide support for the groups in answering to the queries as well and in developing the product. So this lead to the development of support through management information systems that uses a lot of technology, and these are developed using various programming languages. So these systems have become quite powerful today and are used for a variety of purposes, such as scheduling the initialization of the project till the completion of the project in context of the business related activities. So as the management information systems began to proliferate, it soon became recognized that at least two difficulties remained. While the software systems were very capable of providing support for the organizing data as well as the information, and it did not necessarily provide much support for human judgment as well as the choice activity. So many such activities needed support, and they range for providing support in assessing the situations, such as to better detect issues or faults and to support the diagnosis in order to enable the identification of likely causative or influencing factors. So there are a lot of things related to information technology perspective. So they are clients demand, the inputs that are actually needed for developing the product or fulfilling the requirements of the clients. Then comes the usage of resources, which also consist of using the technology, and then the final product is delivered to the client. So when we use the systems, or you can say the software systems, so they did not provide the classical support to the decision related issues that involve selection of alternatives that have multiple as well as non attributes. So this is all related to the business activities, and this capability was provided by support through judgment and decision support systems. And these systems involve linking the database management systems, so common in the MIS era, with the model based management system that are actually capable, and they made possible the task of business analysis through advances in the operations research and artificial intelligence, with the visualization and interactive representation capability that made possible through dialogue generation and management systems. So the resulting systems are generally known as the decision support systems. That is another part of the information technology perspective when we talk about the business analysis. So an additional difficulty is that it has become essentially impossible to cope with the plethora of new information technology based support systems. So the major reason for this is the lack of system integration across the large variety of such products and services. So this has also led to the identification of an additional role for information technology professionals. So one involving the support through information system integration engineering, and an information systems integration engineer is responsible for the overall systems management, including configuration management, to ensure that diverse products and services are identified and assembled into total and integrated solutions to information systems that has issues in large scale as well as have scope. So there are many contemporary technological issues there. So there is a need for what are often called open system architectures. So when information technology is brought to business analysis activities, these information system integration developments and the associated open system environments will enable more efficient and effective configuration management. And this will result in the development of information technology solutions in business activities and in enabling existing organizations to function better. However, there is also a need for better organizational design, and these needs exist in a variety of areas that range from more efficient and effective enterprise management to more effective and efficient education of students in the universities about the business analysis activities if they are concerned with this field and want to make career in business analysis. So this helps to more efficiently and effectively manufacture the so this actually helps to more efficiently and effectively create the products and the processes for creating the products, and it is in this area that contemporary proactive information technology developments promise the greatest payoff.
Just a quick info, guys. Intellipaat provides online business analyst training mentored by industry experts. The course link is given in the description below. Now, let's continue with the session.
And this is what we attempt to illustrate when we talk about the information technology perspective in business analysis. So, through appropriate development efforts and aided by the effective approaches to operational and strategic quality assurance, as well as the management, systems, integration, and standards, it should be possible to achieve many objectives for development through systems engineering. So, it is important to consider the many impacts that various stages and various usages of contemporary information technology have on the environment. And first, there are the propositions deal with the effects of the information technology that is used in the business analysis activities. Now, finally, information technology or any technology that is used can be actually utilized to gather the requirements, know the demand of the clients, know the market in a thorough manner. Then it can help in effectively generating the inputs for developing the products, and it can help to manage the resources and get the resources in order to fulfill the requirements and provide the quality to the client, and finally the product is developed. So all this requires the use of technology in order to make the product according to the client's requirement and make it effectively as well as efficiently in proper time. Now coming to the next thing, that is we have to analyze the product. So any technology that we are using, so it can help in analyzing the product and the requirements, its demand in a much efficient manner. So using technology in business analysis can really improve the product that we are developing. So we can find the scope of improvement, we can define the desired and the future state, and then we can actually improve the product after finding the scope of improvement in that, and we can improve the efficiency, we can evaluate it, we can scale the product according to the defined and desired future state. So all this information technology or the technology that we use in business analysis can involve generating the context for information technology through integration and aligning the strategies for the organization and for information technology development also. And apart from this, it can involve the engineering and the design of an information technology based system through the involvement of users in all life cycle phases of system design, and also it can include the fielding of the system in a manner that provides maximum benefits to organizations and humans, including their access to science and technology. So this all requires very careful attention to such critical ingredients as software systems engineering. So all this, including the information technology, when we use it with business analysis, and it is used by business analyst in order to strategize and optimize the business analysis activity, it actually enhances and improve the further business processes that we use for the development of the product for the client according to the requirement and delivering it on time as well. Apart from it, it helps to maintain and increase the quality of the product as well. So this was all about the information technology perspective. Now we'll discuss about business architecture perspective. Now, what is business architecture? First, we have to understand about business architecture, what it is. So business architecture is a discipline that represents holistic multidimensional business views of capabilities, end-to-end value delivery, information, and organizational structure. So here is business architecture framework, which represents and consists of the business analysis conceptual model, business analysis methodology, then it has business analysis tools that consist of the requirements and it helps in the requirement gathering. It consists of business analysis model that in turn helps in solutions design. So when we talk about business analysis conceptual model, so this is all we have discussed in knowledge area, that what methodologies does business analysis provide to us while working on a project, and we have various techniques, we have guidelines and tools, inputs, then we have stakeholders, elements for business analysis activities. So this is all included in business analysis conceptual model. And when we talk about the business analysis model, that refers to the actual system of the business analysis that we use in order to work on the project and in order to implement the solution, and then it help us to design the solutions. Then coming to the business analysis tools, that actually helps in creating as well as working on all the requirement gathering process related to it. So this is all the business architecture. Now coming to business architecture in an EA context, so it consists of the application architecture and data architecture, technology architecture. Now before we study and discuss each one of them, let me give you a short description of business architecture. So as we have discussed about the business architecture, we'll continue the discussion on the business architecture perspective when we talk and when we implement it in business analysis. So there are some stakeholders that are important to the success of the business architectural initiative, and they may include the change of the sponsors, and this is usually a senior executive or business owner within the organization, but based on the scope of the initiative they could also be in a mid level manager. Then they can change the targets. When talking about the business architecture, it consists of the timeline as well, that consists of the targets, so they can change the targets. So the result of a business architectural initiative could lead to some changes in the organization, and some of those aspects can be affected by these changes and might include the business capabilities, business value streams, initiative plans, investment decisions, portfolios as well. So this comes all under the business analysis models and methodology, or we can say the conceptual model as well. So there are business analyst position. So business analysts working in the environment of business architecture have certain responsibilities, like they should understand the enterprise, all its component and their relationships. They should also provide a complete view of all the different units within the organization. So business architecture provides a range of models of the organization when coming to the business analysis conceptual model, and these models or blueprints, you can say, provide a comprehensive view of the organization, and they also serve as an input into the strategic decisions made by the organization leaders. So to develop the business architecture and the business analysis conceptual model, the business analyst must understand and align a wide range of strategic needs. And to do the business analyst need skills and knowledge. So they require business strategy and goals, they require conceptual business information, enterprise IT architecture, they can require the process architecture verified by various stakeholders, the business owners, project managers. So it can be business performance also, and the intelligence architecture. So all this has an outcome, that is business analysis outcome, and the business architecture provides a comprehensive view which is used in the analysis of the organization when coming to the business analysis models while designing the solutions. So the result of the business architecture may include the strategy alignment as well, change planning, and the execution of the strategy, implementing the change. So this is all we have discussed in previous knowledge areas that are described by the business analysis body of knowledge, and these outcomes are used for requirement planning as well, and for analysis, prioritization, estimation, and system design. So there are architectural blueprints that clarify and eliminates the duplication of efforts which might otherwise occur in creating capabilities, as well as the systems, or you can say, if you are developing the information, you are collecting the information that might already exist in the enterprise when coming to the business analysis conceptual model or the architecture framework. Now further relating it to the application architecture, so first let us see what is an application architecture. So an application architecture describes the patterns and techniques used to design and build an application, and the architecture gives you a roadmap and the best practices to follow when building an application, so that you end up with a well structured application. And then comes the software design patterns that can actually help you to build an application. So business architecture is no longer just an emerging discipline or an interesting concept. So while far from being mature, it is increasingly being leveraged by enterprise to provide tangible values. And in the industry, business architecture has been gaining momentum slowly but surely through the activities of a growing business analysis community involved in the numerous efforts that are related to the business architecture. So next in the business architecture is the data architecture, and it is an offshoot of enterprise architecture that comprises the models, policies, rules, and standards that governs the collection as well as storage, arrangement, integration, and the use of data in organizations. So, data architecture is another important component of the business architecture. And now coming to the technology architecture. So we have already discussed about the information technology perspective. So that is the sub part of the technology architecture as well. So technology architecture associates the application components from application architecture with technology components representing softwares and hardware components. And then its components are generally acquired in the marketplace and can be assembled and configured to constitute the enterprise technological infrastructure. So the entire business architecture comprise of a lot of things related to the application, related to the data as well as the technology. So this was all about the business architecture. Now we'll discuss about business intelligence and business process management perspective. So starting with the first one, that is business intelligence perspective. First you need to have knowledge about what is exactly business intelligence. So BI, or you can say the business intelligence, combines business analytics, data mining, data visualization, data tools and infrastructure, as well as the best practices to help organizations to make more data driven decisions. So in practice, you have got modern business intelligence when you have a comprehensive view of your organization's data and use that data to drive change, eliminate inefficiencies, and quickly adapt to market or supply changes. So much more than a specific thing, business intelligence is rather an umbrella term that covers the business processes and methods of collecting, storing, and analyzing the data from business operations or the activities to optimize the performance. So all of these things comes together to create a comprehensive view of a business to help people make better and actionable decisions. So over the past few years, business intelligence has evolved to include more processes and activities to help improve the performance of the business as well as the organization. So there are various techniques, that is data mining, reporting, performance metrics and benchmarking, that are used in business intelligence by implementing all the business activities involving the tools of BI. So it helps in analyzing the data, it helps in extracting the pattern, identifying the targets, and it in turns help in increased growth, or you can say increasing the growth of the company or the business. So these things involve identification of ways to increase the profit, analyzing the customer's behavior, comparing the data with the competitors, tracking the performance of the business activities that are designed by the professionals or the project manager or the product manager, and then to optimize the operations that are already created, and then predict the success of the business processes or the business activities, then spotting the market trends and discovering the issues or problem. So this can all be efficiently done using the business intelligence tool. So further, with respect to the business intelligence perspective, there are some factors which include change of the sponsor, change targets, business analyst position, business analysis outcomes. So starting with the change sponsor, the change sponsor of a business intelligence initiative should be the highest ranking executive in the organizational unit that is influenced by the change. So this would allow for a stable, cohesive approach to the divided use of data assets within the cross-functional building of a business intelligence solution. So this is about the change sponsor. Now comes the change targets. So the aim of a business intelligence initiative is to help people and processes make better decisions in the organization, and business intelligence can help improve reporting, monitoring, and predictive modeling of the performance related data. So this is included in the change targets. And then comes the business analyst position. So the business analyst is the main liaison between the business intelligence stakeholders and the initiative team members in relation to business analysis activities. So they can take part in various business intelligence technical activities, and it can be like enterprise data modeling, decision modeling, report design, query design. So these business analysts or the business analysts who are performing the activities using the business intelligence tools, they can also have the roles such as describing the business requirements and assessing the potential solutions. Then a functional analyst can be over there who understands data mining, predictive analytics, and visualizations development. And there can be a data analyst who is skilled at describing source systems data which are to be used for analytical purposes. And there can be data architects also who can describe both the source and the target data structures in logical data models. So there are various aspects related to the business analyst position. Then comes business analysis outcomes. So the business analyst who are using business intelligence focuses on the main elements of the solution architecture, which includes the outcome of the business analysis activity. So there can be a lot of things related to the business analysis activity, where the business analyst may have the responsibility to analyze and to gather the specification or identify the specification of the business requirements for all these elements and work with the technical specialist to evaluate the solution artifacts. So the results of the business analysis activity with respect to business intelligence depends on a lot of factors. So it can include the various processes that the organization or the business analyst is using. There can be.
Just a quick info, guys. Test your knowledge of business analytics by answering this question. Business analytics results in which of the following? A. Evidence-based decisions. B. Data-driven decisions. C. Better decisions. D. All of these are correct. Comment down your answers in the comment section below. Subscribe to Intellipaat to know the right answer. Now, let's continue with the session.
The models, which may be the decision models of the company, and that can also depend on the requirements of the client. So this was about the factors which affects the business analysis activities while using the business intelligence. So there are more things, and business intelligence help us to get the following, and these are the details of the business decisions to be affected or changed, the collection of data from the source systems, the combination of different sources into a merged enterprise framework, and then supplying selected information and analytic insight to business stakeholders. Thus, business intelligence can help companies in a lot of ways to make better decisions by showing the present and historical data within their business context. And also, the analyst can leverage business intelligence to provide performance and competitor benchmarks to make the organization run smoother and more efficiently. Also, the business analyst can more easily spot market trends to increase sales or revenue, and when it is used effectively, the right data can help with anything from compliance to the hiring efforts. So it can actually help in a lot of ways to identify the factors that helps to increase the profit of the organization. Also, it helps to analyze the customer behavior in order to understand how we can improve and how we can create our product in order to deliver best services to the customers. And it can help in comparing the data with the competitors so that we can compete in the market efficiently, and it can help to track performance, optimize operations, as well as predict success. So this was about the usage of business intelligence perspective, and there are a lot of tools that are used in order to perform business intelligence related activities in context of business analysis. Now further, there are many business intelligence tools that are used in business analysis, and few of the top tools are Tableau, SAS, Power BI, Zoho Analytics, SAP, and ClickView. Now coming to the business process management perspective. So first we'll understand what is business process management. So managing business process is a huge challenge in most of the companies or the organizations. Also, many business owners assume that it is a huge expense or that it is only worth it for massive processes. However, business process management is important no matter what size your business is. So business process management is actually how a company creates, edits, and analyzes the predictable processes that makes up the core of its business. Moreover, business process management is an organizational discipline where a company takes a step back and looks at all of these business processes in total and individually, looking at each one of them and analyzing what factors actually affects the entire business, and it analyzes the current state as well as it identifies the areas of improvement to create a more efficient and effective organization. So each department and every sector in a company is responsible for taking some raw material, or you can say the data, and transforming it into something else. So there may be a dozen of more core processes that each department handles. So overall it affects the entire business operations, which in turn affects the business analysis activity and helps the company to understand where actually their business is heading to. Now further, with respect to the business process management perspective, there are some factors that affects the overall business business. So before that, why does business process management matter and why these factors influence those business activities? So when business processes are left unorganized and unsystematic, so if there are poor business processes, they can lead to blunder mistakes in the business and it can decrease the growth of the business. So at the individual level, people only see one part of a process and very few can scan out and see the full effects of a process, where it starts and ends and the key data needed, as well as where potential bottlenecks and inefficiencies lie. So that is why the business process management is one of the important factors to see in any business that you are running. So if there is unmanaged or unsystematic business processes, so it can lead to many of the things, like it can lead to the wastage of time while developing the product. It is more prone to errors, then increased blame, lack of data, and demoralized employees. So that is why business process management is very crucial task, because applying business process management, organizations can improve their processes as well as keep all aspects of operations running optimally. So here are the factors which influence it. So this is analysis, transformation, purpose, and optimization. So starting with the analysis, it analyzes the current state and identifies the areas of improvement to create a more efficient and effective organization. Then coming to the transformation, each department in a company is responsible for taking some raw material or data and transforming it into another form. And there may be a dozen or more core processes that each department handles. So these are basically divided into many teams or many departments in order to run each and every process optimally. Then coming to purpose, so business process management is more focused on repetitive and ongoing processes that follow a predictable pattern or process management. Then coming to the optimization part, so applying business process management, organizations can actually improve their processes and keep all aspects of operations running optimally, that I've already told you. So finally, while using the business analysis, while performing the business process management or designing the business process management, the results can be used to investigate the variance between the potential as well as the actual results, and it can be understood if a solution can be or the process can be improved to realize more value or not. So this was all about the business analysis from the perspective of business intelligence and business process management. Now in this section we'll discuss creating UML using Microsoft Visio. So before going to Microsoft Visio, let us understand what is UML. So it is Unified Modeling Language and it is used for visualizing, specifying, constructing and documenting the artifacts of a software systems. So here are the points that describes UML in a thorough manner. So it defines the blueprint of a system. So you can say it as a blueprint. It acts as a blueprint for a system. And Unified Modeling Language is also used for modeling non-software systems, and it is standard for building object-oriented and component-based software systems. Also, UML is a notation system through which we can visualize a model of a system. Also, it describes only design or structure of a system. So UML, that is Unified Modeling Language, is a standardized modeling language, and it represents a collection of best engineering practices that have proven successful in modeling of large and complex systems. So the UML is a very important part of developing object oriented software and the software development process. So the UML uses mostly graphical notations to express the design of the software projects, and using the UML it actually helps project teams communicate, explore potential designs and validate the architectural design of the software. And here we'll have detailed ideas about what is UML and the history of UML as well, along with the description. So coming to early stages of model driven development, there was great need for universal approach for modeling a software system. And as different people understand the notation in different ways, if there is no universal model approach, so there generates a necessity for developing an approach. So at that time, Bruce Jacobson gave their theories and they were universally accepted. And all of the three decided to build a notation language by merging all of the three language, and out product of that was Unified Modeling Language. So the goal of UML is to provide a standard notation that can be used by all object-oriented methods and to select as well as integrate the best elements of precursor notations. So UML has been designed for a broad range of applications. Hence, it provides constructs for a broad range of systems as well as the activities that are distributed system analysis, system design, and development. Now, further, you might have a question that why we use UML. So, the answer to this is as the strategic value of software increases for many companies, the industry looks for techniques to automate the production of the software and to improve the quality as well as reduce cost and time to market. So these activities and these techniques include component technology, visual programming, patterns, and frameworks. So here the businesses also seek techniques to manage the complexity of systems as they increase in scope and scale. So in particular, they recognize the need to solve recurring architectural problems such as the physical distribution, concurrency, replication, security, load balancing, and fault tolerance. So additionally, the development of the World Wide Web, while making some things simpler, has many architectural problems, and the unified modeling language was designed to respond to these needs. So the primary goal is the design of the UML to summarize the model of the business. Now, further, before we begin to look at the theory of the UML, we are going to take a very brief run through some of the major concepts of UML. So the first thing to notice before that about the UML is there are a lot of different diagrams, there are a lot of different models to get used to. And the reason for this is that it is possible to look at a system from many different viewpoints. So software development will have many stakeholders playing at a part. So it can be the analyst, it can be the designers, coders, testers, QA, the customer, and the technical authors. So all of these people are interested in different aspects of the system, and each of them require a different level of detail. For example, a coder needs to understand the design of the system and be able to convert the design to a low level code. Moreover, a technical writer is interested in the behavior of the system as a whole and needs to understand how the product functions. So the UML attempts to provide a language so expressive that all stakeholders can benefit from at least one UML diagram. So structure diagrams shows the static structure of the system and its part on different abstraction as well as the implementation levels and how they are related to each other. So the elements in a structure diagram represents the meaningful concepts of a system and may include abstract, real world, and implementation concepts. So there are various types of structure diagrams, and they are class diagram, object diagram, component diagrams, package diagram, composite diagram, and deployment diagram. So starting with the very first one, which is the class diagram. So the class diagram is a central modeling technique that runs through nearly all object oriented methods, and this diagram describes the types of objects in the system and various kinds of static relationship which exist between them. So it depicts the static view of a model, it is the basic building block of the object oriented system, and it illustrates the relationship between classes in the system. So there can be three principal kinds of relationships and which are important. So it consists of the association that represents relationships between instances of types such as a person works for a company has a number of offices. It can be inheritance, which is the most obvious addition to the ER diagrams for use in object oriented, and it has an immediate correspondence to inheritance while designing the application. And then comes aggregation also, and a form of object composition in object oriented design. So this was about the class diagram. Now coming to more on the class diagram, it consists of rectangle with three compartments. So it consists of the package diagram, composite diagram, and deployment diagrams also. So the class name is added in this compartment, and in composite diagram the class attributed added in this department, that is name. And finally the third one, which is the deployment diagram. So here the class methods are placed in this compartment. Now coming to the generalization aggregation, so these are the relationships that we have discussed that I told you in the previous slide. So a generalization is used to indicate inheritance, aggregations are used to depict elements which are made up of smaller components. An example of the composite can be the aggregation, that is address book and the contact group as well as the contacts. Now coming to the objects, an object diagram is a graph of instances including objects and data values, and a static object diagram is an instance of a class diagram, and it shows a snapshot of the detailed state of a system at a point in time. So the difference is that a class diagram represents an abstract model consisting of classes and their relationships. And however, an object diagram represents an instance at a particular moment, which is concrete in nature. And the use of object diagrams is fairly limited, namely to show examples of data structure. So an object diagram may be considered as a special case of a class diagram. And object diagrams emphasize the relationship between the instances of classes at some point of time. And the object is shown by a rectangular with classifier name in the central, rectangular and underline. Then comes the object diagram shows complex relationship between the classes, and it is also useful if we feel classes as more abstract. So then comes the component diagrams. So in unified modeling language, a component diagram depicts how components are wired together to form larger components or software systems, and it illustrates the architecture of the software components and the dependencies between them. So those software components, including runtime components and executable components, also the source code components.
Just a quick info, guys. Intellipaat provides online business analyst training mentored by industry experts. The course link is given in the description below. Now, let's continue with the session.
Are designed using this technique. So the component diagrams actually shows the system in term modules, and it can be represented as encapsulated, reusable and replaceable. Then coming to more details on components, it can be used as building block of the system, and it can communicate with each other through interfaces, and component can do the same thing as class. Then comes the package diagram. So package diagram in unified modeling language, structure is a structured diagram which shows packages and dependencies between the packages. And then model diagrams allow to show different views of a system, for example as multi-layered application or multi-layered application model. So package diagram are used to divide the model into logical containers and their interaction, and package diagram is used to show the high level view of the system as well. So as software system have a lot of classes, building block in object oriented system, so it can help to organize those in a package to show higher level view of the system. So package is also used to structure your classes, and package diagrams is used to divide the complex systems into modules, and in large system to show the large elements and their communication. Also, it is used in large and complex systems as well. Then coming to the composite diagrams, composite structure diagrams is one of the new artifacts added to unified modeling language, and a composite structure diagram is similar to a class diagram and is a kind of component diagram mainly used in modeling a system at micro point of view, but it depicts individual parts instead of whole classes. So it is a type of static structure diagram that shows the internal structure of a class and the collaborations that this structure makes possible. So a composite structure diagram is a UML structural diagram that provides a logical overview of all or part of a software system. So it acts as a look inside a given structure classifier, defining its configuration classes, interfaces, packages, and the relationships between them at a micro level. And this diagram can include internal parts, ports through which the parts interact with each other or through which instances of the class interact with the parts and with the outside world, and as well as the connectors between the parts, or you can say the ports. So the composite structure is a set of interconnected elements that actually collaborate at runtime to achieve some purpose, and each element has some defined role in the collaboration. So you can see over here it shows the internal structure of a structured classifier or collaboration. Then finally comes the deployment diagram. So deployment diagram over here helps to model the physical aspects of an object oriented software system, and it is a structured diagram which shows architecture of the system as deployment of the software artifacts to deployment targets. So artifacts represent concrete elements in the physical world that are the result of a development process. So it models the runtime configuration in a static view and visualizes the distribution of artifacts in an application. So in most cases it involves modeling the hardware configurations together with the software components that lived on. So deployment diagram models the physical layout of the system, mapping software artifacts to hardware in which they execute and their communication. And then deployment diagram is used to show the physical deployment of the system. Now next, there are more details related to deployment diagrams that we'll discuss. So deployment diagram has node which may be a hardware or any device that hosts the software and maybe a software that hosts another software. So there are artifacts that shows the software that is implemented on the hardware. So this was about the types of UML. Now comes the behavioral modeling diagrams, and this consists of the use case diagrams, activity diagrams, state machine diagrams, communication diagrams, sequence diagrams, timing diagrams, and interaction overview diagrams. Now starting with the very first one, that is the use case diagram. So a use case model describes a system's functional requirements in terms of use cases, and it is a model of the system's intended functionality, that is use cases, and its environment, that can be actors that can act as actors. And use cases enable you to relate what you need from a system to how the system delivers on those needs. So think of a use case model as a menu, and much like the menu you'd find in a restaurant. So by looking at the menu, you know that what's available to you and the individual dishes as well as their prices. So you also know what kind of cuisine the restaurant serves: Italian, Mexican, Chinese, and so on. So by looking at the menu, you get an overall impression of the dining experience that awaits you in that restaurant. So the menu in effect is the model, and it is actually the restaurant's behaviors. So because it is a very powerful planning instrument, the use case model is generally used in all phases of the development cycle by all team members. So a use case is an interaction between a system and external stimulate. That could be a human and maybe an external system. Also, a use case diagram is an proposed functionality of the system, and use case diagram is used to show a discrete unit of the work. Also, it is used at early stages of model, and it is the simplest diagram. Now the example of use case for a stock trading system can be opening of an account, closing of an account, deposit of the funds, and drawing of the funds. Then comes the activity diagram. So the activity diagrams are graphical representations of workflows of stepwise activities and actions with support for choice, iteration, and concurrency. Also, it describes the flow of control of the target system, such as the exploring complex business rules and operations, describing the use case, also the business process. And in the unified modeling language, activity diagrams are intended to model both computational as well as organizational processes that can be called as workflows. So activity diagrams is a type of dynamic view of the system. An activity diagram is similar to the flowcharts, and each activity consists of series of actions, and the actions are represented by oval shapes. So the actions are also connected by the arrows. An arrow shows the flow of the activity diagram, and the activity diagram also shows the decision points that are called decision nodes. Then comes the state machine diagram. So here a state diagram is a type of diagram that is used in the UML to describe the behavior of the systems, which is based on the concept of state diagrams by the person who is creating it for the business model's purpose. So the state diagrams depicts the permitted states and the transitions as well as the events that affect these transitions. So it helps to visualize the entire life cycle of the objects and thus help to provide a better understanding of the state based systems. So it shows the dynamic view of the system. It is also called state chart or state machine diagram, and it shows the behavior of the system in response to some external stimuli. So the state diagram consists of super states and pseudo state transitions. Then comes the communication diagrams. So over here it is similar to sequence diagram, and the communication diagram is also used to model the dynamic behavior of the use case. So when comparing to the sequence diagram, the communication diagram is more focused on showing the collaboration of objects rather than the time sequence, and they are actually semantically equivalent. So some of the modeling tools such as visual paradigm allows you to generate it from one to the other. So a communication diagram, formerly called a collaboration diagram, and it shows the similar information to sequence diagrams. Also, communication diagram shows the objects relationship, and objects are shown with association with the connectors between them. So here the messages are added to the associations, and that shows as short arrows pointing in the direction of the message flow. Then comes the sequence diagrams. So here the sequence diagrams provide a graphical representation of object interactions over time, and one sequence diagram typically represents a single use case scenario or flow of events. Also, the diagrams show the flow of messages from one object to another, and as such corresponds to the method methods and even supported by a class or object. Now comes the timing diagrams. So the timing diagram shows the behavior of the objects in a given period of time. And the timing diagram is a special form of sequence diagram. So the differences between the timing diagram and the sequence diagram are the axes are reversed so that the time are increased from left to right, and the lifelines are shown in separate compartments arranged vertically. So the timing diagrams are actually used to display the change in state or the value of one or more elements over time. Also, a state lifeline shows the change of state of an item over time, and the x-axis display the elapsed time in whatever units are chosen, and the y-axis is labeled with a given list of states. Now, coming to the interaction overview diagram, the interaction overview diagram focuses on the overview of the flow of control of the interactions, and it is a variant of the activity diagram where the nodes are the interactions or the interaction occurrences, and the interaction overview diagram describes the actual interactions where messages and lifelines are hidden. So you can link up the real diagrams and achieve high degree navigability between diagrams inside the interaction overview diagram. So the interaction diagram is the combination of activity and the sequence diagrams, and it allows the interaction fragments to be easily combined with decision points and flows. Also, an interaction overview diagram is a form of activity diagram in which the nodes represent interaction diagrams. Moreover, interaction diagrams can include sequence, communication, interaction overview and timing diagrams, and most of the notation for interaction overview diagrams is the same for activity diagrams. For example, initial, final, decision and join nodes are all the same. Also, the interaction overview diagrams introduce two new elements, that is the interaction occurrences and interaction elements. So this was all about the types of UML diagrams as well as the behavioral modeling diagrams. Now next we'll see the details of Microsoft Visio and we'll try to implement it. So Visio helps in drawing and diagramming program that helps to transform concepts or system into a visual representation. So you might have question like what is Microsoft Visio? So it is all about diagrams, and that's what Microsoft Visio does, and it does it better than any other app that you come across. So from flowcharts to floor plans, there isn't much it can't handle. And now being honest, Visio is one of the best application to draw UML diagrams. So Visio is an intelligent diagramming program, and it empowers you to communicate in a visual manner and helps make your diagrams more meaningful, flexible and responsive to your needs. And you can capture information in ways that are valuable for you and your business. So one of the most popular uses of Visio is to illustrate business processes, and moreover Visio Professional also helps you make web diagrams such as a website map, and each shape in the map represents a link on a website and includes information about the link type and location. Also, you can use the map to analyze your site's organization or to classify the site's content. So Microsoft Visio can be used to create a simple or complicated diagram as well. So it offers a wide variety of built-in shapes, objects and stencils to work with, and you can also make your own shapes and import them if you are willing to do all that extra work. So the driving idea behind Visio is to make diagramming as easy as possible for the user, and I think Visio is on the right track for that. So there are various versions of Visio that you can see and that you can use. So whatever version you use, each template over there equips you with the appropriate menu and objects that are already open and ready for use. Even more templates can be found in specific categories within the application or from Visio's online download page. So Visio's primary client have been enterprise users at the corporate level, and if you think about it, it's not too often that the home user needs to write up professional diagrams. So usually a paper and pen will suffice because a home user's diagram isn't being sent out to an entire department. That's why Visio has always been considered a program for serious diagrams. So Visio can be used to create 3D map diagrams also, though the built-in tools for this are limited, and it works well for simple maps that you might print on a brochure or campus directory. And another thing Visio can do is pull in live information from an external source such as an Excel sheet or Access database. and this makes diagrams functional and concurrent. So the most recent example that you can see of using Visio is to monitor the network status across a localized broadband system. So there are various editions further, that is standard and professional edition. So coming to the standard one, so the standard and professional editions of Microsoft Visio share the same interface, but the professional edition has additional templates for more advanced diagrams and layouts, as well as unique functionality that makes it easy for user to develop the diagrams. So Visio comes packed with a lot of built-in shapes you can add to your creation, and several hundreds of shapes that are organized by category for easy access, but it can still take some time to find the best one for the job, just because there are so many to choose from. So overall, Visio is just a diagram tool, and it can be used for creating the UML diagrams, and it is one of the most important tool while dealing with the business analysis activities and to develop the diagrams for the analysis of the business. Now further, there are DFDs, that is data flow diagrams. So we develop the DFDs using Microsoft Visio to represent the flow of the data and the structure of the data, or you can say the architecture that describes the functionalities of various business processes. So DFD can be drawn to represent the system of different levels of abstraction. So there can be physical data flow diagram and there can be logical data flow diagram. So there are differences between them that we'll discuss. So the physical data flow diagram shows the current system flows, whereas the logical data flow diagram shows the data flow structure and requirements of a new system. Now coming again to the physical data flow diagram, it shows how the data flow is actually implemented in the system, whereas logical data flow diagram mainly focuses on the system's process. Then physical data flow diagram is more specific and close to the implementation, whereas logical data flow diagram illustrates how data flows in the system. Now there are data flow diagram symbols. So there is source and sink.
Just a quick info, guys. Test your knowledge of business analytics by answering this question. Business analytics can be used for which of the following? A. Finding patterns. B. Verifying previous decisions. C. Predicting results. D. All of these are correct. Comment down your answers in the comment section below. Subscribe to Intellipaat to know the right answer. Now, let's continue with the session.
So it actually helps to establish the boundaries of the system, and a source identifies the origin of a data inflow to the system. Then a sink identifies the outflow of a system, and many times as information, and sometimes referred to an entity. A source may be a customer, vendor, employee, or even another system. And a single entity can be both a source and a sink. Now further, we have processes. So as you already know, business analysis can be understood as a research discipline that helps you find the business needs, identify solutions to business problems. So these solutions may include the development of a software or system component, or improvements in processes, organizational changes, or strategic planning and policy development. And the purpose of business analysis is to identify solutions that meet the needs for the improvement. So all these aspects of business analysis requires certain process in every field, that is while developing the application, while planning the strategy, while delivering it. So everything needs to have a proper process. So a process is actually a series of steps and decisions involved in the way that a work is completed. So we may not realize it, but processes are everywhere and in every aspect of our work. And a few example can be like, if you want to create an application, you have to first make a strategy that requires certain processes and guidelines. Then you have to develop it, so that again requires a specific process in order to develop it. So these are the activities, it can be manual and automated, that transform the inputs, transport the data from process to process, and stores the data and produce the outputs of a system. So processes are used on every data flow diagram, starting with an overall process on the context level diagram of the system. So then comes the data store. So it is the resting place of the data in a system, and a data store can be in the form of paper, a disk file, or any other social media. And normally the word data does not appear in the title of data store. So some examples of data stores are customer order, payment, invoice, time card, and many more. Then finally, coming to the data flow lines, it is the data in motion, and data can move from the outside, or you can say the source, into a process. And once the inside of a system, data must flow from place to place through a process. The flow lines show this movement, and the lines are labeled to provide clarity and meaning to the data moving through the system. So this was all about the data flow diagram symbols, and what is Microsoft Visio, why do we use it, and what are the types of addition that are available, and how you can use Microsoft Visio in business analysis, and why it is important, and there are certain advantages of using Microsoft Visio. Now we have seen a lot about the theory of Microsoft Visio. Now in the next, we'll understand and we'll implement hands-on related to creating the UML diagrams using the Visio application. Now that is the final one. We'll have hands-on for creating UML diagrams using Microsoft Visio. So let us open the application. Now this is our Microsoft Visio application. So here are various types of diagrams, and you can see the categories over here. That is the basic diagram. It can be blank drawing where you have to create everything from scratch. There can be basic flowchart and organizational chart, detailed network, Azure diagrams, timelines, cross-functional flow, workflow diagrams, Microsoft SharePoint, UML class. So there can be a lot of things over here. Then there are certain categories over here, which is of business, engineering, flowchart, general, maps and floor plans, network, schedule, software and database. And this is new from existing, that is creating a new one. So you can see over here there are a lot of categories for which you can go for. So like if I talk about software and database, so if you want to create an architecture or a UML diagram for denoting the software related things or the database related things, so there is a different template that we use over here, and it will assist you in creating that UML diagram in a better way. Now coming to the general one, so there are the shapes, there are various tools and components that you can use, and you can use the diagrams and shapes in order to create a new one. Then here comes the flowchart also. So you can use this flowchart in order to directly create a logical diagram or a logical UML diagram in order to denote some business scenario. So these are the types of template present over here. So here are few of the suggested searches, that is these are related to networks. So here are the categories, here are certain categories that you can go for. So for education, here are various templates over here. You can search, you can select the category over here. So if I select this basic flowchart, so you'll get the option where you have to create flowcharts, top-down diagrams, information tracking diagrams, process planning diagrams, and structure prediction diagrams, and contains connectors and links. So it can be metric units. You can select US units. So I'll select this thing and I'll select US units, and I'll click on create in order to create the diagram, and this is the template. So you can see over here these are the basic flowchart shapes, that is processes, sub processes, document, data, start and end, decision. And here are a lot of things like custom, database, external data. So there are more shapes over here. So if you are looking into business related shapes, so brainstorming, if I'll click on this, so you get these types of shape over here. If you go to engineering, if you go to mechanical engineering, and if I'll click on fluid power equipment, so you will get the diagrams related to the fluid power equipment. So you can see there are a variety of, and there are a range of diagram that is present in Microsoft Visio that can actually assist you in creating the UML diagrams for your business analysis activity. So whether it is an IT industry or an industry that runs on mechanical operations, business analysis is everywhere, and you can use Microsoft Visio in order to create the UML diagrams for any business analysis activity. So now coming to general one, so there are basic shapes. So I'll click on basic shapes, and you will get the rectangle, square, ellipse, circle, triangle, right triangle, pentagon, and there are hundreds of shape over here that you can see and you can create. So let us zoom this little bit. So I'll zoom it in order to get a clear vision of this. So here is a UML diagram that gives the start point, the condition, the sub process, the data, and the process that is to be executed, and the end. So you can use the same template, or you can alter it according to your use, according to the business activities, and you can create a new one also. So I can change the text over here, so I'll double click on it, and instead of start, I'll write business analysis, and then in the condition part I'll write requirements gathering. And after writing this requirement gathering part, if requirements gathering is done, then I have to specify some data, and if it is not done, then there is a sub process that needs to be executed. So in the sub process I can add follow up the client, and in the data part I leave it as it is, because if the requirement gathering is done, the data needs to be stored. So I can write it over here that data should be stored, and after that there should be certain process. So process can be analyzing the data. So this is a simple flowchart, or you can say the UML diagram, that is starting of the business analysis activity, then requirements gathering. If the requirements are gathered, then data should be stored, and after that you have to analyze the data, and otherwise you have to again follow up the client. So this is just a simple use case or a simple diagram that I have shown you. Further, there are more tools over here, that is stencil. So there is this option called new stencil, which includes metrics and new stencils that consist of US units. So I'll click on this new stencil. So now you get the option of stencil over here. Now again, going to more shapes, you can add software and databases if you want to denote, and if you want to create a UML diagram related to the software that you are creating or the database. Also it can be a web diagram. And coming to the software part, there are some common icons, controls, cursor, data flow diagram shapes. So I'll click on data flow diagram shapes, and it will show us few of the shapes over here, that is data process denoted by the circle, external interactor, then object, data store, center to center one, and there are many more shapes that show various tasks over here, that is stop state, state, multiple processes, start state, multi-state, entity relationships. So these are all related to software engineering. Also there are various option over here, that is of insert. You can insert a chart. So by clicking on this option, you can actually insert a chart over here if you want. So here you can give in the values, and here is the business process. So this can help you to actually represent data in a better way. And also now further we have more options. So I'll create a completely new UML diagram. So let me go to the template page. So now this is our home page, and we'll click on blank drawing, and I'll click create over here, and here we'll get the blank page over here. I'll zoom in a little bit in order to get a clear view. Now over here I'll click on more shapes. I'll go to flowcharts, and I'll click on basic flowchart shapes. So I'll get all the shapes that will help me to create a basic UML diagram. So this is for a process, this is for a decision, this is for start or end, data, document. So I'll start with the start and end shape. So first I'll zoom in more, and I'll click on start, and then I'll put it over here. So here I have to put the start shape, and then I have to put in the process over here. So I'll take this shape over here. So this is the process, and after that I'll give the decision, and then the sub process, what is to be performed after the decision is made. And then we get external data, database. So I'll take the shape of the database as well, because in business analysis, after collecting the requirements, the data can be stored in the database. So I'll take the database shape over here, and on page reference custom, so it is not required. I'll take the data over here. Okay, so I have taken the shapes over here. Now I need to arrange them. I need to make a proper flow between them using the arrows, and I have to put in the text over there in order to describe the UML in a better way so that it is representable and someone can understand and take out some logic out of it. So I am creating this UML diagram for requirement gathering. So I'll put in start over here, and in the process part I'll write as requirement gathering, and this is done. So I have to put an arrow over here, and for connecting it I can use the connector over here. So from the start to the requirement gathering I'll put the connector. Now after that, now further I'll zoom in a little bit more because it is not visible. So now it is quite visible to us. So here decision, I'll write it as gathered, data gathered. So if it is yes, then I'll put the shape in over here. So this will be again data, and this will be the database. So if data is gathered, then I'll put the connector over here again, requirement gathering, then comes the data gathered, and if it is gathered, the data will be stored in the database. Otherwise, if data is not gathered, we'll go to the further sub process. So I'll write the sub process as follow up the client for requirements. Now, apart from this, I have to put in the text over here. So first of all, I'll increase the length of this. Now it is connected. And for putting the text between the processes and the shapes, I'll go to insert option. I'll click on text box over here. I'll insert a text box over here. This is no. And again, I'll put a text box. So I'll click on text box, and here I'll write it as yes. I have to smaller the size of the text over here. So from 12 I'll keep it as 9, and for this one also I'll keep it as 9. So this is the data flow diagram, and further this data and database, so between them also I'll put the text box over here. So I'll click on text box and I'll again put it over here, and I'll write that store the data in the database, and I'll make smaller the text over here to 9. Okay, I can also further reshape it in order to put the text in a better way. So this is our data flow diagram. Further, I'll add one more process over here, that is analyzing of the data. So analyze the data. So I'll put in the text over here, analyze the data, and I'll connect it with the connector. So from the database, when the data is stored and collected, so the business analyst has to analyze the data, and then also when the data is gathered, so you have to analyze the data. So I have to connect this part of sub process, that is following up of the client for requirements, to analyzing the data. So I have to again, so I'll connect it with requirement gathering. So after the requirement is gathered, so it will go to this part. It will check whether the data or the requirement is gathered or not. If it is yes, then data will be stored in the database, and then the data will be analyzed. So this is the ultimate data flow diagram, or the UML diagram that you can say, that we have created using Microsoft Visio. So this was all about creating UML diagram using Microsoft Visio. Finally, this is all about various types of business analysis perspective, information technology perspective, and the details related to creating UML diagrams using Microsoft Visio. So thank you for watching this video.
Just a quick info, guys. Intellipaat provides online business analyst training mentored by industry experts. The course link is given in the description below.